Welcome to another episode of Med Help 24/7. Please like, comment, and subscribe for future videos. Thank you very much. Alright, so today we're looking at a close look at the thyroid gland, and we're taking a look at the anatomy, histology, and also some of the functions as well. So just a brief overview of what the thyroid gland is. So what is the thyroid gland? Well, the thyroid gland is also just below, it's located in your neck, and it's also the endocrine gland, which means it secretes hormones. And it is connected to the larynx, which is the voice box, and it secretes T3 and T4. There's two hormones, and those obviously basically they regulate the metabolic rate inside the body. Now, you probably might have heard about thyroid disorders. There's a huge amount of thyroid, hypothyroidism, and we'll take a look in that next video. But let's take a look at the anatomy in this video here. So there's anatomy of the thyroid gland has two lobes. There's the left lobe and there's the right lobe. And there's this middle piece called the isthmus, and that basically connects. I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, but it connects the left lobe with the right lobe as well. And it has this characteristic bow type shape as well. It basically lies over the trachea. The gland basically lies over the trachea, and it is also connected directly to the larynx, which is the voice box as well. So yeah, just keep in mind, obviously keep in mind the left lobe, the right lobe, the isthmus, and then understand that it's placed over the trachea. It's located inside of your neck here as well. So let's look at the histology. Now, this is what happens is there's these things called follicles. It's arranged in these follicular cells, and this follicle, there's around these things called colloid in the middle, and the colloid basically is a jelly-like substance that's also used to produce the hormones as well. And the follicular cells are also the ones which have active iodine pumps, because you may have heard about thyroid gland and iodine, and it uses iodine to produce those thyroid hormones as well. And that's why there's a lot of iodine pumps. That's what the main function of follicular cells there as well. You may notice there's some C cells in there as well. Those C cells are more of, they're secreting their hormone called calcitonin. And that's not related to the thyroid hormones at all. There's kind of a separate entity. So, yeah, inside the colloid we have a jelly-like substance called thyroglobulin. Now, thyroglobulin is basically, it's formed from a dimer. Thyroglobulins are basically, exists as a dimer of 240, there's 140 tyrosine amino acid residues, and that's also used to produce the thyroid hormones as well. So it's like a precursor, so as to speak, as you can see there as well. I think I should have a slide that depicts more. Anyways, the follicular cells, they produce two hormones which are derived from amino acid tyrosine. Number one is also known as T4, thyroxine, or tetraiodothyronine. And the second one is what we call triiodothyronine, also known as T3. Now, you may be wondering what's the difference between T3 and T4. Well, the difference is the number of iodines. In T4, there is 4 iodines attached to the thyroglobulin molecule, and in T3, there's 3 iodines attached. Now, these hormones will obviously work on the target organs within the body to regulate the body's basal metabolic rate. And basically, when there's lots of excessive thyroid hormone, it's going to be a really high metabolic rate, and if there's a low thyroid hormone, it's going to be a low metabolic rate. So that's pretty much what we're looking at there. And we also have, I remember earlier, they had the C cells. Now, C cells, they secrete the hormone called calcitonin, and calcitonin is also involved in calcium metabolism in the body, and it has an independent role, so it's not really connected with the thyroid hormones at all. It's totally independent. So we're not going to be talking about calcitonin here, because calcitonin is very independent of the thyroid hormone, so we're not going to be focusing on this stuff. So we're going to focus more on the thyroid hormone. So again, we need 2 ingredients. So what do we need first? Well, number one, we need tyrosine amino acid residues, which is also found in the thyroid molecule. And secondly, what we need is iodine. Now, iodine, there's these iodine pumps. There's active ATP energy pumps on the outside membrane of the follicular cells, and what they do, they pump the iodine into the cell. And that's the main function of the thyroid gland is. It's to pump the iodine, to store the iodine as well. And what happens, we have a really good diagram here. So first of all, what's going to happen in the bloodstream, these pumps are going to take the iodine and they're going to pump it into the follicular cells, and then that's going to be I minus. Now, and then we have an enzyme called the thyroid peroxidase enzyme, and that converts the I minus into I2, and the I2 will now go into the colloid. Now, as you can see here, so that's the I minus. It's going to go into the colloid, which is I2. Next thing that's going to happen is that iodine is going to bind to that thyroglobulin molecule within that colloid space, and it's going to iodinate the thyroglobulin, as you can see there. Now we're going to get an iodinated thyroglobulin, and once that thyroglobulin has been iodinated, then it's going to be taken into the follicular cell once again here. Again, it's going to be taken into the cell by pinocytosis, and it's going to be taken into the thyroglobulin there as well. And then what happens is that we have this lysosomal protease enzyme. And this lysosomal protease enzyme, what it does, it basically cleaves off. That's what it does. It just basically cleaves off the T3 and the T4. And you notice, remember in the diagram, there's MITs and DITs. That stands for monoiodothyronine, and the DIT stands for diiodo. So there's the when you have the single iodines and the double iodines. That's what MIT. But the T3 and the T4 are the ones that get released into the bloodstream. So as you can see here, that's T3, and then this is T4. As you can see, T3 has 3 little iodines, and T4 has 4 iodines attached to the tyrosine amino acid residues. Now, 9% of hormones that secrete are T4 and 10% is T3, but by the end of the day, most of the T4s will get converted to T3s at the end of the day as well, because T3 is the more potent of the two hormones, and T4 is basically like a delivery vehicle, because T4 has a half-life of has a much longer half-life in the body. So they're obviously going to go and travel to target organs and have their effects. And because the thyroid hormones are actually very, very lipophilic, they're not able to cross in the blood, so they have to be bound to these plasma proteins called thyroxine-binding globulin proteins, and they also get transported like that, similar to how fats get transported around the body in chylomicrons. Now, there's three main functions of thyroid hormones. Number one, they increase the basal metabolic rate. Number two, they promote growth and maturation. And number three, they have very specific physiological effects we'll be covering. So now we're going to take a look at each of these in its own little slide here. So let's look at number one, increase the basal metabolic rate. Now, what is the BMR? The BMR is the rate at which energy is expended in the body in a nutrient-temperate environment at rest. And physiological effects include, increased protein synthesis. There's going to be increased RNA synthesis, a lot of mitochondria, much more ATP being produced. And there's also going to be a lot of increased action of sodium-potassium pumps as well. So basically, the whole body is really, really sped up here. Second, promoting growth and maturation. Well, the development of the central nervous system before and after birth requires the thyroid hormone, and also the sexual development of puberty also depends on thyroid hormones as well. So if you have a deficiency of thyroid hormone, that can have serious effects in terms of your growth of your central nervous system and your and stuff like that there as well. Now, the thyroid hormone actually has a synergistic effect. What that means is synergistic effect. It works with the growth hormone called insulin growth factor 1, which is secreted by the liver. And basically what happens is that if you have a lot of thyroid hormones at first, you're going to cause rapid growth at first. So there's people in their class that will obviously grow really, really quickly at first and then stump much earlier. And that's all because the thyroid hormone that basically regulates the rate at which you grow. And also specific physiological effects, carbohydrate fat metabolism, increased blood pressure, increased cardiac output, increased GIT motility, and basically the whole body system can be sped up. That's basically what we're doing. We're speeding up the whole body, and that's what's basically happening if you have excessive levels of thyroid hormones, as you can see there as well. So let's take a quick summary here. We have a thyroid gland. It's also in the neck. It has a right lobe and it has a left lobe, and it's connected in the middle by something that's called the isthmus, as you can see there as well. And the thyroid gland is also mainly involved in regulating the basal metabolic rate inside the body. What else is there? Also, we have these follicle cells here. There's follicles, and inside the follicles we have this colloid in the middle, and the colloid contains the thyroglobulin molecule. And surrounding the colloid we have these follicular cells, and they have active iodine pumps, which pump the iodine into the colloid, and the iodine will go and bind to the thyroglobulin molecules. And remember, the thyroglobulin molecule is made out of 140 tyrosine amino acid residues. Remember that, tyrosine amino acid residues. Iodine gets taken in, it gets converted by the thyroid peroxidase enzyme from I- into I2. The I2 will then go into the colloid and bind to thyroglobulin. Thyroglobulin will now get iodinated and then will be taken in by pinocytosis into the follicular cell. Once it's inside the follicular cell, the lysosomal protease enzyme will cleave off the T3s and the T4 hormones and release them into the bloodstream, basically the MITs and DITs are basically like T1, T2. They get recycled into the next cycle, as you can see there as well. So be sure, you do have to make sure in cycles. This is one of the most recognizable cycles in the human body, so you do have to make sure you know this in quite some detail, as we can see there as well. And remember, the three effects of thyroid hormones are regulate the growth metabolic rate, remembering the promotes growth and maturation, and the third effect is that it has specific physiological effects as well. Remember, T3 is the more potent of the hormones. T3 is the more stronger hormone, and T4 is the weaker hormone. And remember that most of the T4 will get deiodinated to produce T3. Remember that most of the T4 will end up becoming T3 at the end of the day, but it's secreted as it secretes 90% T4 and 10% T3. So that's what we're looking at in terms of thyroid gland. I do have a next video. We'll have more about the disorders of the thyroid gland.